Something just cracked wide open in the Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma saga, and I promise you, by the time you finish watching this, you are going to be sitting there with your mouth hanging open, wondering how a two-time Olympic gold medalist walked into a podcast studio, opened her mouth, and single-handedly torched what was left of her public reputation on live camera. This is not a stretch. This is not clickbait. This is a public execution, and Claressa Shields loaded the gun, aimed it at her own career, and pulled the trigger while the world was watching. I am telling you right now, what Claressa Shields just admitted, what Claressa Shields just contradicted, and what Claressa Shields just revealed about her own understanding of the situation with Papoose and Remy Ma is so catastrophic that I had to sit down, rewind the clip 4 times, and ask myself if I was really hearing what I was hearing. Because listen, I have watched a lot of celebrity implosions in my time behind this microphone, but this one is different. This one has legal receipts, this one has documented timelines, this one has screenshots, this one has a Google search engine spitting out the truth in real time, and Claressa Shields still, somehow, thought she was going to walk into that studio and win the interview. Spoiler alert, she did not win. She did not even come close. She got dragged, she got exposed, and then she did the thing that only somebody with absolutely no media training or self-awareness does, she opened her mouth and made it 1,000 times worse. Grab your snacks, grab your drink, lock your door, because we are about to walk through every second of this disaster, frame by frame, contradiction by contradiction, and by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly why Claressa Shields will never live this down. Welcome back to the channel, family. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button because we do not skim the surface, we go deep, we bring the receipts, and we call it exactly like it is. Now buckle up. Let us set the scene, because context is everything. Claressa Shields sat down for a fresh interview, and it was supposed to be about her upcoming boxing match, it was supposed to be about her career, it was supposed to be about her legacy inside the ring, and Claressa Shields, being Claressa Shields, could not resist steering the conversation directly into the very topic that has been dragging her name through every corner of the internet for the past year and a half. That topic, of course, is her relationship with Papoose, the man who is still legally married to rapper Remy Ma. And listen, I want you to really absorb that sentence, because it is going to be the axis around which this entire spinning disaster rotates. Papoose is still legally married to Remy Ma. Not spiritually married. Not emotionally married. Legally married. Signed paperwork married. Judge has not touched it married. That is not opinion, that is not narrative, that is not spin, that is the plain black and white letter of the law. And Claressa Shields, sitting on that podcast couch, decided she was going to argue with reality itself. She decided she was going to walk into a room full of professional interviewers and tell them, essentially, that gravity does not apply to her situation. And I am here to tell you, gravity, the IRS, marriage law, and the court system do not care about your feelings, Claressa Shields. So the co-host, God bless this co-host, asks Claressa Shields the question every single person watching this saga has been screaming at their television for months. The co-host essentially asked, how much longer are you willing to be in a relationship with somebody else's husband? That is the whole ballgame. That is the elephant that has been sitting in every room Claressa Shields has walked into since this thing started, and finally, somebody in the media had the spine to put it directly on the table. And you would think that Claressa Shields, being a professional athlete who trains for high-pressure moments, would have a rehearsed answer ready. But no. Instead, what we got was a masterclass in how not to defend yourself. What we got was Claressa Shields trying to pause the entire interview like she owned the studio. Yes, you heard that right. Claressa Shields, the guest, tried to press pause on the host. Let that sink in. She was the invited guest, and she tried to hit an imaginary pause button in the middle of a live-recorded conversation. It is one of the most delusional power moves I have ever witnessed. Because pause implies you have the authority to stop the tape. Pause implies you have control over the narrative. And Claressa Shields does not have any of those things. She is a fighter. She is not the boss of that show. That was somebody else's platform, somebody else's microphone, somebody else's audience, and Claressa Shields tried to seize the wheel like a passenger reaching over to grab the steering wheel from the driver. And the internet clipped it, saved it, replayed it, and turned it into a full-blown meme within about 17 minutes. But that pause moment, that is not even the worst thing that came out of her mouth. Oh no. We are just getting warmed up. Because after Claressa Shields tried to pause the interview, she launched into what I can only describe as the most self-contradicting monologue in modern celebrity gossip history. Claressa Shields said, "And I want you to follow the logic here because you are going to need a spreadsheet." She said Papoose is not somebody else's husband because he filed for divorce. That was her opening argument. Papoose filed, therefore he is not a husband, therefore she is not with somebody else's husband, case closed, thank you, good night. And then, in the very next breath, before the sound of her first sentence had even finished bouncing off the studio walls, Claressa Shields turned around and said, "And if you are going to call him her husband, make sure you call her his wife." Excuse me. Excuse me. Rewind that. If you are going to call Papoose her husband, make sure you call Remy Ma his wife. Do you understand what just happened there? Claressa Shields, in the span of 2 consecutive sentences, argued the opposite of herself. First she said Papoose is not a husband. Then she conceded that if anyone calls him a husband, they must therefore call Remy Ma a wife. Which means Claressa Shields herself just admitted, out loud, on tape, that the husband and wife framing is applicable. She just torched her own defense. She lit her own argument on fire and threw it in the trash while smiling for the camera. And the guy sitting next to her, you can literally watch his face do the thing where the brain tries to process what just happened and cannot quite catch up. He looks stunned. He looks confused. It is a contradiction inside of a contradiction wrapped in a pause button. Somebody, please, take the microphone away from Claressa Shields. Somebody sign her up for a media training boot camp. Because every time she opens her mouth to defend her situation, she stabs her own reputation another inch deeper into the ground. Now, let us zoom out and talk about the receipts, because Claressa Shields wants us to accept a version of reality that the actual paperwork does not support. If you go to Google right now, you can type in the exact question, if someone files for divorce, are they still considered a husband if the divorce has not been finalized? And the answer that comes back is the same. Yes. A person remains legally married until a judge signs a final divorce decree. Filing paperwork does not dissolve a marriage. Filing paperwork starts a process. That process can take months. That process can take years. And until that process ends with a judge's signature, the two people in that marriage are, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the IRS, in the eyes of every institution that matters, still married. So when Claressa Shields sits on a podcast couch and says Papoose is not somebody's husband, she is not speaking a truth. She is speaking a wish. She is speaking the version of reality she would like to live inside of. But the world does not bend to her preferences. Papoose is legally, technically, factually, and undeniably still Remy Ma's husband. Period. End of debate. And the timeline is where this whole thing gets even worse for Claressa Shields. Because Papoose filed for divorce in May of 2025. That is the date on the paperwork. That is the timestamp on the electronic filing receipt that Papoose himself proudly posted on social media, trying to look like the hero of his own narrative. He paid $325 to e-file the divorce. Papoose did not file for divorce until after Remy Ma dragged him publicly. Let that sink in. Papoose was not the initiator. Papoose was the reactor. Remy Ma got on social media, went off on a legendary tirade, put text messages on blast, accused Papoose of pawning her jewelry, accused him of having a gambling issue, called him out with the now iconic red flannel video, and dropped the receipts on live camera. That happened first. The date on that video is May 22, 2025. And it was only after that public dragging, after Remy Ma had already turned the internet into her personal court of public opinion, that Papoose scrambled to a computer, logged into the New Jersey e-filing system, and pushed the paperwork through. 5:16 p.m., May 22. The same day. The very same day. So the narrative that Papoose was the responsible adult who initiated a peaceful divorce is a fantasy. He filed in retaliation. He filed in embarrassment. Bless her heart, honestly, bless her heart. Because the math is not mathing. Where is the Claressa Shields tattoo on Papoose's arm? Where is the Claressa Shields wedding ring on his finger? Where is the Claressa Shields joint reality show, the joint album, the joint tour, the legally binding public commitment? It does not exist. All the tattoos in this relationship are on Claressa Shields. All the effort is flowing in one direction, from Claressa Shields toward Papoose. And Papoose is strolling around, still legally married, still not making a single public gesture that matches what he did for the woman he is supposedly leaving. Read the room, Claressa Shields. The receipts are not friendly to your version of this story. Now let us get to the part of the interview that truly broke my brain. Claressa Shields, in the middle of trying to defend herself against the somebody else husband question, decided to pivot and try to redirect the heat toward Remy Ma. She said, and I am not making this up, she said the show needs to hold Remy Ma accountable too, because Remy Ma has a man. Excuse me. What? Remy Ma has a what now? First of all, Remy Ma is not the guest in the studio. Remy Ma is not the one at the microphone. Remy Ma is not the one who is being asked questions. Claressa Shields is the guest. Claressa Shields is the one who accepted the interview invitation. Ma'am, you are a grown woman, you are a champion athlete, act like it. Second of all, and this is where Claressa Shields really cooked her own goose, Remy Ma has already gone on the record, on a much bigger platform, sitting down with Angie Martinez, and confirmed that she is single. Confirmed it. Not implied it. Not danced around it. Confirmed it. Angie Martinez asked Remy Ma point blank, wait, are you single now, is that what is happening, and Remy Ma said yes, I am single. Full stop. Clean confirmation. So Claressa Shields is out here on a smaller podcast trying to tell the world that Remy Ma has a man, when Remy Ma herself, on a bigger stage, has already told the world that she does not. Do you see the problem? Claressa Shields is either lying, or Claressa Shields is stunningly ill-informed about the very woman she is trying to slander, or Claressa Shields is spinning fiction in real time hoping nobody will fact-check her. But we fact-checked her. The internet fact-checked her. That is a tangled ball of contradictions, and Claressa Shields is trapped inside of it. Let us keep dissecting this interview, because the hits keep coming. Claressa Shields said, in spirit, people go through divorces and breakups all the time. Okay, sure. Nobody is arguing that. But here is the part where Claressa Shields caught herself in yet another loop. She said divorces take time. And that is true. But if divorces take time, then that means the marriage is still legally in effect during that time. Which means Papoose is still legally Remy Ma's husband during that time. Which means Claressa Shields is dating somebody else's husband during that time. She literally argued the case against herself and did not even notice. The prosecution did not even have to show up. Claressa Shields prosecuted herself. And let me tell you why this matters. Claressa Shields has an entire career on the line. She has a fight coming up. She has sponsors. She has endorsements. She has a public image she has spent years building. She is one of the greatest amateur and professional boxers in American history. Two-time Olympic gold medalist. Undisputed champion in multiple weight classes. She has punched her way into rooms most athletes only dream about. And right now, at the peak of what should be the most celebrated stretch of her career, the only thing anybody wants to talk about, the only thing that is trending, the only thing that shows up when you search her name, is her connection to a married man and her inability to articulate a coherent defense of that connection. That is not a boxing story. That is not a legacy story. That is a cautionary tale. That is the kind of chapter that ends up in a Netflix documentary 10 years from now titled something like The Fall of a Champion. And Claressa Shields is writing that chapter in real time, one podcast at a time. Let us talk about the phrase Claressa Shields threw out that keeps living rent-free in my head. She said, "Oh, this is why I always have to correct y'all." Correct y'all. Ma'am, you cannot correct anybody when you cannot even correct yourself. You cannot correct anybody when your own sentences contradict each other inside the same breath. You cannot correct anybody when the state of New Jersey, the state of New York, Google, the IRS, and every law firm in the country all agree that filing is not the same as finalizing. You do not have the standing to correct anybody. You are the one being corrected. You are the one being fact-checked. You are the one being schooled in real time by co-hosts, by the internet, by the paperwork trail, by Remy Ma herself. Sit down, Claressa Shields. Now here is the twist inside the twist. Claressa Shields, during that same interview, tried to argue that she never came into a happy home. She said Papoose and Remy Ma were already done before she showed up. She said they had been done for years. She said she was never a side chick because there was no active relationship to be a side chick to. Okay, let us test that. If Papoose and Remy Ma had been done for years before Claressa Shields came into the picture, then how do we explain the fact that Papoose was still living in Remy Ma's house? Still sleeping under her roof. Still sharing a domestic space. Still parenting their child together in the same building. If it was over, why was he still there? If it was over, why was Claressa Shields, in her own words at various points in this saga, hidden? Why were there stories about first dates happening inside Sprinter vans and parked cars? Why were there stories about phone calls being answered in whispered voices? Why was there a leaked moment where Papoose supposedly fell asleep on the phone with Claressa Shields, still with a whole wife in the next room? Those are not the behaviors of two mature adults who are openly separated. Those are the behaviors of two people who are hiding. Two people who know exactly what they are doing. If Papoose and Remy Ma were truly, cleanly, publicly done, Claressa Shields could have knocked on the front door. Claressa Shields could have said hello, hi, Remy, I am here to pick up Papoose, we are going to grab dinner, be back later. That is how two grown adults handle a clean separation. But that is not what happened. What happened, based on the timeline, based on Remy Ma's own account, based on the leaked text messages that we have all seen with our own eyes, is that Claressa Shields was in the inbox. Claressa Shields was on the mood board. Claressa Shields was slipping in through side doors while a whole marriage was still standing. And now, on this podcast, she wants us to believe she walked into an empty house. Nope. That house was occupied. That house had lights on. That house had a wife in it. Do not gaslight us, Claressa Shields. We were there. We watched it. And Claressa Shields has a habit of moving the timeline goalposts. In one interview, she has said Papoose and Remy Ma were already done. In another interview, she has said she and Papoose were both single when they started talking. In yet another interview, she has hinted at overlapping relationships. She was engaged to Tony Rich around some of those earlier dates. The paper trail does not add up. The stories do not sync. The math is broken. And whenever the math is broken, whenever the timeline does not close cleanly, that is when you know somebody is spinning. Somebody is protecting the narrative. Somebody is retrofitting a story to fit the current mood. Claressa Shields is doing all of that in real time, and she is not doing it well. Let us return to the interview itself, because the co-hosts did something admirable. They asked the tough question. The uncomfortable question. The question everybody at home has been asking. And Claressa Shields, instead of showing up with a prepared answer, tried to shut them down. Tried to pause them. That is a huge red flag, family. That is the behavior of somebody who knows deep down that the truth is not on their side. That is the behavior of somebody who is not ready to have the conversation but keeps volunteering for the conversation anyway. And Papoose. Oh, Papoose. Let us not let Papoose off the hook here. Because if Claressa Shields is losing this public relations war, Papoose is the one who handed her the map to the battlefield and forgot to include the escape route. Papoose is the one who filed the divorce paperwork in the middle of a public dragging and then acted like he was the peacekeeper. Papoose is the one who posted the receipt online, trying to make Remy Ma look like the villain, when the timestamp on that receipt tells a completely different story. Papoose is the one who wrote a whole social media rant about how, when two adults behave in a civilized way, divorces can be private and peaceful. Sir. You paid $325 at 5:16 p.m. to file for divorce on the exact same day your wife was dragging you on the internet. That is not civilized. That is not peaceful. That is a reactionary panic move. And you thought posting the receipt would make you look responsible, when in fact it just proved the timeline everyone was already accusing you of. And on top of all that, Papoose has been dragging his feet on finalizing the divorce for more than a year. If Papoose was so serious about Claressa Shields, then finalize the divorce. That is the whole ask. Sign the paperwork. Go to court. Wrap it up. Because until you do, everything Claressa Shields says about being with a free man is a lie. Everything Claressa Shields says about not being a side piece is a lie. The only thing that changes the conversation is the judge's signature. And that signature does not exist. Not yet. And I have to point something out. Remy Ma is not the one holding this divorce up. That is a lie that has been floating around, and it needs to be put to bed. In the leaked text messages, which I have seen and which the internet has archived, and instead, every single interview, every single press hit, every single podcast appearance, is getting hijacked by the Papoose situation. That is not a promotional cycle. That is a distraction cycle. Claressa Shields did not stumble into this fire by accident. She built the fire. She lit it. She poured gasoline on it. Claressa Shields was reportedly connected to Papoose while he was still living with Remy Ma. Claressa Shields was, by her own admission and by Remy Ma's account, hidden in the early stages of this connection. Claressa Shields was on phone calls with Papoose while his wife was in the same house. Claressa Shields was engaged to Tony Rich during at least part of this timeline. And Claressa Shields keeps returning to the microphone even when the microphone keeps making her look worse. None of this had to happen. If Claressa Shields had just kept her head down, focused on the fight game, and let the situation with Papoose and Remy Ma resolve itself in court quietly, the public conversation would look totally different right now. But she chose the loud path. She chose the messy path. She chose to be a character in a soap opera rather than a legend in a boxing documentary. And now she is paying the price. Every single week. Every single podcast. Let me spell out one more thing that keeps getting glossed over. Papoose has not put a ring on Claressa Shields' finger in any legally meaningful way. There has been some engagement chatter. There have been some jewelry sightings that got clowned on the internet because the ring, allegedly, did not exactly scream serious commitment. But there is no wedding date announced. There is no venue booked. There is no invitation list. There is no legal step toward marriage number 2, because Papoose cannot even complete his exit from marriage number 1. So this whole engagement conversation is happening in a fantasy space, on a timeline that has not been earned, in a legal universe that does not yet exist. That is not romance. That is roleplay. And Claressa Shields, unfortunately, seems to be the only one in the relationship not aware that she is playing a part in somebody else's stalling tactic. Because at some point, you are a grown woman with access to Google. At some point, you know what filing versus finalizing means. And if you keep going on podcasts telling the world that Papoose is not somebody else's husband, when Google, the courts, and common sense all disagree with you, then you are not just a victim of misinformation. You are an active participant in it. And that is a very different problem. Alright, let us bring the receipts back one more time, because I want you to walk away from this video with the facts locked in your head. Fact 1, Papoose filed for divorce from Remy Ma on May 22, 2025, via New Jersey e-filing, at approximately 5:16 p.m., for a fee of $325. Fact 2, that filing happened on the same day that Remy Ma publicly dragged Papoose on social media in a now legendary flannel shirt sit-down where she leaked text messages and aired grievances. Fact 3, as of the current calendar date in 2026, more than a year later, that divorce has not been finalized. There is no judge's decree. There is no legal dissolution. Fact 4, under United States family law, a spouse who has filed for divorce but has not received a final decree remains legally married. Fact 5, Remy Ma has publicly stated, on Angie Martinez's platform, that she is currently single, which means Claressa Shields' claim that Remy Ma has a man is unsupported by Remy Ma's own words. Fact 6, the timeline of Claressa Shields' involvement with Papoose predates the public separation. Those are the facts. Those are not narratives. Those are the entries on the record. And Claressa Shields, if she is watching, if her team is watching, if her PR people are watching, this is my honest professional advice, offered for free. Stop doing interviews about the relationship. Stop reacting to every comment on social media. Stop copying Remy Ma's phrases. Stop trying to redirect accountability. Focus on the fight. Focus on K. Scott. Focus on Atlanta. Focus on winning your next bout so decisively that boxing becomes the story again. Because right now, boxing is not the story. You are the story. And you are losing the story to yourself. Nobody is beating you in this news cycle. You are beating yourself. And the only way to stop the bleed is to close your mouth and let your fists do the talking. Because here is the truth Claressa Shields still does not seem to grasp. The public does not hate Claressa Shields. The public is confused by her. The public is annoyed by her. The public is disappointed in her. But it is not hate. Not yet. There is still time to pivot. But every additional podcast appearance where she torches her credibility inches that public sentiment closer to something colder. She is walking toward it. Fast. And nobody in her camp seems to be pulling her back. You know what really tells you Claressa Shields is in trouble? Her defenses have gotten weaker over time, not stronger. Now she is saying Papoose is not a husband, but Remy Ma should still be called a wife. Now she is saying divorces take time, but also that Papoose is not somebody's husband. Now she is saying Remy Ma has a man, when Remy Ma has publicly said she does not. The story is fraying. The seams are popping. The whole wardrobe of her defense is falling apart in public, and she cannot stitch it back together fast enough. And that is why I said at the top of this video that Claressa Shields will never live this down. Because the internet does not forget. Because the interviews get clipped, uploaded, screenshotted, and archived forever. 10 years from now, when Claressa Shields is trying to promote a comeback fight or a memoir, this moment will still be there. She built these moments. She recorded them with her own voice. And she cannot delete them. So, family, let me hear from you. Drop it in the comments. What was the most jaw-dropping line Claressa Shields said in this whole interview cycle? Was it the pause moment? Was it the husband-wife contradiction moment? Was it the Remy Ma has a man claim that got instantly debunked? Was it the correcting YO line that had no business coming out of her mouth? Or was it something else entirely, some little side comment that flew under the radar but told you everything you needed to know? Tell me. I read every comment. And while you are down there in the comments, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell. Because we are not done with the Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma saga. Not by a long shot. There is a fight coming up. There is a divorce filing that still needs a judge's signature. There is Remy Ma continuing to live her soft girl era while all this chaos swirls around her. And there is Claressa Shields, guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed, to sit down for another interview and say something else that we are all going to have to break down piece by piece. It is going to happen. It is inevitable. And when it happens, you are going to want to be here for the coverage. Before I close, one last thought. Watch how Remy Ma has handled this whole thing. Because there is a masterclass hiding in plain sight. Remy Ma has not gone on 20 podcasts. Remy Ma dropped one carefully worded interview with Angie Martinez. She confirmed her status. She named her era. She let the internet do the rest of the work for her. And ever since then, Remy Ma has stayed above the fray. She lets Claressa Shields talk. She lets Papoose scramble. She keeps her dignity in the process. That is what winning the news cycle looks like. At the end of the day, this whole story boils down to one simple truth. You cannot argue with paperwork. You cannot argue with a judge's signature that has not been made yet. You cannot argue with the fact that a marriage is legally intact until the state says otherwise. Claressa Shields is going to have to learn this lesson. And if she wants to save what is left of her reputation, she is going to have to close her mouth and let the timeline do the work she keeps trying to shortcut. That is where we leave it for today, family. Claressa Shields walked into an interview trying to win. She walked out of it having handed the internet a highlight reel of her own downfall. She contradicted herself. She misrepresented Remy Ma's own words. She misunderstood basic family law. And she added another chapter to a saga that is going to define her public image for a long time. Papoose is still Remy Ma's husband. That is the fact. That is the law. That is the receipt. And no amount of pausing, correcting, or deflecting is going to change that. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not until a judge signs the paper Claressa Shields cannot manifest by wanting it hard enough on a podcast couch. See you in the next one, family. Stay sharp. And keep bringing the receipts, because this story is not close to being over.